When we think of the monster Naoya Inoue, the first thing that comes to mind is his destructive power. In particular, it is his superb body shots that are truly exceptional in knocking out his opponents so far to date. But how does Inoue get such devastating levels of punch power? Well, a big part of it all comes down to his training, and believe it or not, it's not from lifting weights, but by doing the very old school and traditional boxing training. In this video today, I'll be going over all the methods the Japanese boxing star uses to get into top physical condition and to develop his power. This should hopefully give you an idea of how the monster trains, and maybe you can take a few elements into your own training. The routine. Now, from looking online, I have to admit I've struggled to find what Inoue's routine is actually like. But as far as I've found is that he will usually get up in the morning and do some sort of cardio or morning runs or strength and conditioning, and then he will at least have a 2-hour gym session in the afternoon. But that in itself, you can definitely piece together some of the things that Inoue does in these sessions. Old school boxing training. Yes, sometimes old school training is simply the best way to help develop fighters to become the very best they can. For Inoue, his trainers and coaches, in fact, really work on the fundamentals for the most part. This will include pad work to help practice defense, punch combinations, power shots and footwork. He'll use the punch shield for power punch technique to create angles while using footwork, the heavy bag for conditioning, punch combinations and once again punch power. He'll also do shadow boxing, where there's a lot of footage of Inoue doing quick, explosive punches while also just working on the simple fundamental techniques. Finally, just like all the top champions, sparring. And unlike the others, Inoue actually shows himself sparring quite a lot, which is unusual. However, by sparring often, he's more comfortable and better prepared to adapt to what comes against him come fight night in the ring. Now, I'm not sure if you've noticed from all this, but one of the words I used was power, and this is definitely one of his biggest strengths, and just from looking at the training footage online, he works on this area extremely hard. However, it's not just the power he works on, but it is Inoue's accuracy, which is one of the best in the sport right now in my opinion. The precision he has to land power shots is so good. By the time it comes to fight night, it's so natural to him, it usually doesn't end well for his opponent. I'll go into details later in this video in terms of how he uses these drills and then manifests them in the ring. The one thing I have noticed I haven't seen too much of is reflex drills, or there just simply isn't enough footage online of this. I imagine his defense and reflexes are worked on mostly through his pad work and sparring. Explosive sprint training. Now, as I mentioned, I found that Inoue has been seen to do a lot of cardio work or sprint work in the morning, and this involves many different types of sprints. This obviously helps to simulate boxing explosiveness, and as a sharpshooting power puncher, this is key for Inoue. He'll do things like stair and hill sprints. Once again, a very traditional way for fighters to work on the explosive endurance, as Inoue is often seen running upstairs. He'll also do resisted sprints, and in particular he'll do this on the beach. Here his coach will attach a resistant band around the Japanese world champion as he has to push through the resistance of his trainer holding him back. Finally, he'll also do just general sprints on normal flat ground, but he'll do this alongside his gym partners. Maybe this is also a psychological element to help build up his competitive nature and mental edge to win. And then finally, they'll just do their typical cardio work on top of the sprints. Strength and conditioning. Once again, Inoue doesn't do anything spectacular in terms of lifting huge weights or anything like that. As he's a lighter weight category, boxing conditioning and bodyweight exercises are more than enough to help develop his strength and conditioning. Here are some examples of what he does. Sledgehammer workouts. Now, instead of the old school chopping wood like you see in the Rocky films, Inoue uses the modern edition of the sledgehammer on the tire. Once again, this exercise helps to develop power, making it an excellent workout option for him. This exercise helps to strengthen the majority of his whole upper body. We'll also see him use battle rope work. which is a great strength and conditioning exercise to work on endurance while working on the explosiveness of your upper body. Another thing I've noticed Inoue do is simply doing pull-ups to work on his back muscles and overall body strength. And finally, he's been often seen doing boulder throwing. Now, probably something you wouldn't expect from a lower weight fighter like Inoue, but he is the monster after all. This is once again a full body exercise that requires your whole body to generate power to throw the rock up in the air. If you do plan on doing this, please be careful. Strategy and precision. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video in terms of the precision Inoue uses, this is a big part of how he trains, and it's a part of his strategy and game plans going into the fight. For the most part, the Inoue camp knows his power is ridiculously good, but that's not just what he is all about. Inoue is in fact a very calculated fighter who mainly tries to create openings through his sharp, accurate jab and counter punches. If you watch any of his pad work drills, or even himself in the heavy bag, he's always been taught to move his feet and head, thus making him a very hard opponent to hit cleanly after he punches. There's some great examples of Inoue doing these drills. Now, not to get too off track, but Inoue's training reminds me of the movie Forrest Gump. In particular, the scene where he learns how to play ping pong. In the scenes, we see Forrest Gump practice the simple basics before becoming a world champion ping pong player. And if you compare this to Inoue's training, it's very much the same kind of concept. When he's doing his drills, it's all through repetition and continuous movement. It's all through the repetition of doing the same drills over and over. A great example of this was this great training clip here, where he throws the right hand and slips to his left to dodge the incoming jab, where he did this to knock out Maloney in their championship fight. This is a great example of doing the repetitious simple techniques over and over again, and by the time it comes to fight night, Inoue has perfected this technique so well, it comes so natural and he manifests it with ease. Another great example of him doing this is simply doing the body shots. We often see him using this with his trainer using the bodyguard shield or pad work or punch shield. The accuracy of doing this over and over again helps him able to pull off those body shots with ease come to fight night. It simply shows Inoue is definitely not just some power punch slugger, as some people think when they watch his highlight reels. Instead, by doing the fundamentals over and over again, we're at the point when it comes to fight night, he does it with such ease. Recovery. Interesting, in an interview with Mizuno, Inoue revealed that he is human just like everyone else. He said, "If my body feels heavy today, I'm going to do training as a practice of close combat without using my legs. I should not just follow the given routine during the daily 2-hour gym workout. But I think it's necessary to think about what I feel and change every day for my growth. I just stopped doing it. If I practice when I can't think straight, I only feel lost and stressed. I just need to start over the next day, then normally can go back to the way I was, so I don't force myself. It is partly true that the physical strength matters in boxing, but it doesn't mean you can win if you keep practicing without a break. It is critical in boxing which person can make sharp movements in a movement, so I practice while facing myself." That in itself is very interesting to me. It shows he is just like everyone else in a way. He even says, "I'm human after all, so I also get lazy sometimes. For any athlete, it's impossible to keep being perfectly stoic all the time. But that's why choosing how I face myself is an interesting part, and I feel that I've made to live while being tested. For instance, on a day I take a rest from road work, I find myself different mentally and physically from myself on the day I run. I then think of covering it by the things I do in the afternoon practice. Either on a day I don't practice or on a day I have put pressure on myself, I enjoy things like that. After finishing practice with satisfaction that way for many days, I can attain a strong mentality and confidence which helps me to demonstrate 100% of my ability. So even though I do the same training regime, training in the moments matters the most. In order to exceed my limits during a match, the most critical thing is to pile up efforts every day." Once again, I find this very interesting from Inoue, that the mental side of him having to battle to have rest days or what he should be doing in his training is all a matter of his mental mindset. It shows that he is human just like everyone else. It also shows he knows the mental aspect of recovery as well as the physical. Final thoughts. In my opinion, Inoue's training and primary focus is his unbelievable punching power, and it is no wonder he has managed to get to the levels he has through his relentless work and repetition of training. The one thing I can think any fighter can take from this is that he just does all the old school training methods and fundamentals through repetition. And this is what makes him across the board so dangerous for anyone. I also like the fact that he trains and takes advantage of his power by focusing on technique and accuracy. He's a great example for any fighter looking just to improve the fundamentals. So guys, that wraps up this video. Make sure to hit that like button, really helps out the channel. If there's another boxer's training regime you'd like me to cover, comment below as well. Highly recommend you check out my Inoue boxing style analysis if you want to find out more about the monster. As always guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.